Merry Christmas, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at Creator in Conversation. So, what we've done is last week we were joined by John from Malta Comic Con behind Gladiatrix for Heavy Metal Magazine, and that was beginning a two-part of Malta Comic Con interviews. The second part with Dave King we'll use to close out this year, so tune in next week for our final episode of 2025. But to bring us into the holiday spirit, I'm joined today by Nick Roche. This episode is from the archives of Dublin Comic Con. Nick, typically, you know Nick from Transformers, Spider-Man, Scarenthood, his credit-owned series from IDW. But Nick is just super busy, and first and foremost, he is a father first. So we have a little bit of juggling to do to get him to record a new episode with us. And sorry, Nick, I know we've been back and forth, so maybe in the new year of the season 2. But I decided to run with this episode because it was a great opportunity to chat with Nick, particularly at Dublin Comic Con, because typically there's a Transformers event that coincides most of the time when we have Dublin Comic Con, and Nick can never make it. So this is just a nice mince pie of an episode for you all to enjoy, going back to Dublin Comic Con and a nice conversation with Nick. It was recorded, I think, back when I was still with Pulse College as well, as director of animation there. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Creator in Conversation from the archives with Mr. Nick Roche. Okay, hiya Nick, thanks very much for coming along to Dublin Comic Con March Edition 23. So what we're doing here in the Pulse College room is that we're talking to various attendees from the world of games, animation, and of course comic books. And our main focus is usually like young adults or teens, particularly teens of, leaving certain age, going into college, looking at that next step in their life, and like the world's big and scary, but they have dreams, they have passion, and then they look at someone like yourself going, hey, I want to do that. And they say, well, what did you study or do to get to where you are? And then you realize, as we've been just talking with many people today, it's a winding road. It's like no one goes to college and just walks into the job as much as you want. No one, gets that lucky break. If it does, it is lucky,
Yeah.
So what was the origin for you? Like, how did you end up, getting into the comics world?
Well, I always feel like a charlatan when I get asked this question, especially when it's to do with, the educational side of things, because I didn't do any education to get there. So like things like Pulse College are like, they're really, really good. And I think if they were being available when I needed them.
But that's why we kind of exist.
Yeah, you're filling the hole.
Yeah, because Evan kept saying, I wish I knew this, I wish I knew that. And then it's like, well, why don't we set up the structure for it? So, but that's good. And you've helped teach with us before.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think I spent more time, doing those few weeks of teaching than I did in any sort of kind of... But, with me... there's always things going on. When in the middle of the 90s, when I was finishing school, I was still 16 after I did my leaving cert. So I would have been very young to have gone to college. But I also was told that when I did go to there's only animation colleges in Ireland at the time. There wasn't stuff that would talk about illustration or kind of comic books at all. I remember going to Ballyfermot and Dún Laoghaire, and they said that, well, if you come here to do animation, you can't do comics. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I better not come here then. I was really young anyway, so I wasn't really prepared to move out of home. And I just that really little bit of negativity, I thought I was being told, you have to pick one or the other, Whereas now I realize that, you don't have to do what anyone tells you. And if you want to keep making comics, you keep making comics. And I wish I'd gone, really, or at some stage, because there's lots of fundamentals you can learn in that sort of framework, I think. And, even with things like peer review, that you've got mates with you that you're kind of coming up along with, and you're working to deadline, and it's just stuff that would have been helpful rather than kind of working in a bubble like the way I did. Ultimately, around 2005, after doing different jobs in the arts here and there, I worked in a street theatre company for a few years. I still wanted to make comics, but I wasn't getting anywhere with my samples that I was sending, my uneducated samples that I was sending off to places. 2005, I got work with IDW Comics to do Transformers, but it was that year that I had decided, I'm a mature student. I need to learn some tricks and animation. I knew at 25 that I could go to animation college and still make comics. Do you know what I mean? And you at that stage, it was like, hang on a second. So I knew that I could sort of go to animation college to make comics, essentially. And if I got into animation, well and good. So I applied to animation college that year, but it was the same year that I got offered the Transformers work. So I kind of deferred for a year. And then a year later, the Transformers thing was building. So I just stayed kind of working in comics that way. But the only reason I was ready for Transformers comics was during the 90s and early 2000s, I was part of like a fanzine scene, like a kind of a snail mail kind of, paper fanzines, papers and staples. And so I was making sequential art. I was kind of, a lot of it had like giant robots in it. So it wasn't very useful to like companies like Marvel and DC. But you're still learning lots of storytelling, And I was submitting stuff to companies, but to Marvel and DC, I sent off an X-Men submission. And I think I sent something else off as well. I did. I sent off another thing when Epic Marvel were taking on. They were opening the Epic imprint again in around the mid 2000s, and I sent some off for that stuff. But I was told it wasn't ready both times. But and I wasn't. In this case, Marvel were right. But that's kind of about my break in and about my kind of my brushes with third level learning, I suppose, in education. One of the things I did do actually, I did send off for, but did not complete. I sent off for the Joe Kubert School of Cartooning.
Oh, very good.
Comics and cartooning. And so I got some of their mail order stuff. So I didn't ever really complete it in that sort of monthly thing where you send off, but I did use those books and rinse them. So, it still went in there. I just didn't, there was a couple of assignments where I did complete them and I got like excellent feedback. And sort of knowing what I know now, apparently it could have been one of the Kubert brothers or Joe himself doing the draw-overs.
Oh, very good.
So they mail them back to you back in like mid-90s or whatever with like sort of kind of grease-proof draw paper or whatever. And they'll have all the notes, really good notes about what you've done wrong and how to do better. And they'll correct your mistakes, whatever.
That level of detail is incredible.
Yeah,
how many people? That's insane.
Yeah, it was. It was. And so that was the sort of thing that, like, up until very recently, I'd sort of be in bed and then you go, I didn't finish my Joe Kubert school, because it was a great chance to have, and I still paid for it. You had to pay for the whole course. So that was a brush with it. Mid kind of 2000s as well, I kind of did like a foundation course for a portfolio kind of prep or whatever. So, and that was good, but it showed me what, you got to sort of do painting and sculpture and all that sort of stuff, ceramics and stuff, but it just made me realize that all I wanted to do was draw 2D things on paper, and comics were the thing, so.
But it's really interesting with education because, like, you mentioned you dabbled in other courses, and even it's not even so much about the completion, but it's also about giving yourself the options, because in animation, where like primarily I'm like program director for animation, but we have a comic book module within it. We call it Sequential Art Design Production, and Gary Erskine, who's with us today, is the lecturer lead on it. And what's interesting with a BA is, okay, if you have any type of college qualification, we teach you one aspect of just animation, you might get a job, right? Because you could be the best in it. But unless that show is like The Simpsons or that film has an endless budget, it's going to end up, and if you're just trained in one field, you've no career move. With a BA, at least you can, or certificate or whatever, you have options to diversify your skill set. And it's just really endearing to hear you talk about animation and then comics as well, side by side, about branching out, because we had Mike Collins talk about his connections and his storyboarding as well.
He just became the king of the storyboard, the go-to guy for storyboard.
It's incredible, and it's all visual storytelling. What's interesting is, if you really break it down, it's almost like a graphic sequential language, isn't it? Because it has its own rules and structure.
I have had that said to me, from TV people, not even animation people, but sort of said, look, at what you're doing is something we could use. Do you know what I mean? And I haven't gone that route yet, but it feels that like you're the kind of the language, the core of the language is the same, really. It feels like at the moment I'm working in animation. Weirdly, I did end up working in animation just because I've got a very specific, like Liam Neeson in so many ways, I've got a very, very specific set of skills, and that skill seems to be drawing robots that people like the look of. And so I'm working on the Earth Spark for the Transformers Earth Spark for Nickelodeon, and their main Transformer character designer.
And that'd be on Paramount.
It's on Paramount Plus, and it's on the actual Nickelodeon on the cable channel as well. So you can kind of see it without the Paramount Plus subscription, but do subscribe. I get €4 for every subscription. No, it's and it's interesting because it's sort of like I know how to design a transformer for the comic page, so it's been very interesting, sort of having to think 3-dimensionally, and that these things have to be built and they have to be rotated, and they have to look good in many different poses, and so it's been. And that's when the imposter syndrome comes in, because you feel like an imposter for being there a little bit, but also the fact that it feels like I'm getting free tutorials from these art directors who are sort of like, we really like what you're doing, and here's how you do what we want you to do. Like, it's kind of, it's been amazing, because the team on Earthspark are the same guys who the art directors from the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series.
Very good, yeah.
So that was like, just so stylized and so kinetic, and they just know what works, and that's been my education, but it's taken me, a lot of time to get to that position. But I don't know, talking about converting, I don't know how to convert working as a transformer designer on Earthspark to when Earthspark wraps, like, I don't know, are they bringing back GoBots? Do you know?
But I suppose but even the skill set that you would have, like, it's interesting. The other day, I was putting forward for funding for new courses, okay? Yeah. But I'm animation, so it has to be animated, leaning towards animation.
Course, yeah.
There's a housing crisis going on at the moment. To try and resolve that, they're 3D printing houses at the moment. 3D printers require actual animation like design in Maya. So what I proposed was a certificate in animation for architecture and design. And then it's like, instead of looking at a blueprint, we teach them how to walk through the environment. But I'm like, it's the same skill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if someone studies this course, it's going to have 3 outcomes. 1, you can create an architecture. 2, it feeds into government mandates. And 3, you still have the skills that if you want to go on and work for Pixar, you still have it. But that's it. So like what you were saying there, like we'll go back to like you've basically industrial design, which is,
I hope so. Yeah, I was being mildly flippant, but like it's kind of it's just that little bit of sort of like,
but you don't know until the opportunity presents itself, isn't it?
Yeah. It's an interesting position to be in, because it's like I do find I'm loving the job on Earthspark, and it's kind of like it's humane hours. Do you know it's not like comics and stuff, but it's kind of that itch in my head the whole time. It's like, I want to make comics. There's just something a bit more, I think, especially like even when I was making work for hire stuff like Transformers comics, you can very much put your own style on it, and I definitely did. But in animation, rightfully, you're part of a team. Like you have to sort of like, you're all working towards one vision and stuff. So I kind of like the autonomy. So I would like to do more comics, I think. But I don't know. And then, if I'm being realistic though, like animation pays better than comics.
And I can see that, because with comics, I think.
That's not me saying animation pays amazing. It's just it pays better than comics.
It is. Yeah. It's just the way it's different. It's different beasts. Like, because when you're getting like a big hit on comics, like that's kind of significant. But the animation is, you don't need like an average job in animation. It's almost like a big hit.
Yeah, no, it is. It really is. Like, yeah.
It's but yeah, no, it's just fascinating. You just see. I think someone has to write to be a very tedious task, but like just the economics between animation and comics. What is on the horizon for you in terms of comic books at the moment? Do you have any like burning project? Like how Scarenthood, first of all, your creator owned stuff.
Oh yeah,
Scarenthood, of course, as well. Who did that come out again? Was that IDW?
That was IDW, because they'd had the rights to Transformers, so I was already kind of in their family, so it kind of made sense to go with them. IDW, they published a comic, Scarenthood, that I co-created with Chris O'Halloran, the colorist. And Scarenthood, for anyone who doesn't know, is a comic set in South County Dublin, and it's about a group of parents of preschoolers who go ghost hunting while their kids are in school. They've got to be back in time for lunch to pick up the kids. So it's kind of like the Goonies, but with mortgages and anxiety and all that sort of stuff. And it's very Irish folklore. There's lots of stuff about like Irish like demons and kind of a little bit of kind of Catholic Church scare and stuff as well. And a lot of Roman Catholicism imagery, but like, ultimately coming down to there's pagan entities still among us. And it's about this one dad who kind of like, while the kids are at a school trip or whatever, he crawls on. Himself and his mates break into the school basically, and he ends up disrupting and disturbing a holy statue that was keeping a demon in place, and the demon kind of haunts him and his family, and he's got to figure out what's more scary, sort of like fighting demons or kind of remember to pick up your kid and feed them, and just being a good dad. So and that's something I am ready to do more on. I like. You heard it here first. Like I'm 2 scripts into like the second volume, and I think it feels like it's gonna happen. But there's a few things slowing it down, and then it's not just my schedule and stuff like that. Just IDW need to iron out a few things for us to go ahead. So, in terms of adaptations or other media, that's I got you. I don't know what you're talking about.
What's that? Oh, it's.
I've been told that it's very adaptable. I've been told that it's because it's sort of set in a real world sort of thing, and it's comedy based like possibly like a comedy department somewhere would be interested in it.
Okay.
And it's not too special effect heavy, and it's kind of slice of lifey, so it could adapt to like a sitcom kind of, is what I've been told, to like a kind of a sitcom format. But that's all I know at the moment.
Awesome. Well, I want to give you a chance to get back as well to the Arts Alley. How's the Arts Alley been for you? It's.
I feel like I have to tell you good things about it, but I tell you good things about it anyway because this weekend has been amazing. Like I'm only like here first half of the first day, but it's just been great. It's slick. Everyone's been looked after. Everyone's buzzing. Like the audience, the people, the punters, they're all having it. They're just having the crack. You just sort of, they come up and they're looking at your table and they're looking for stuff full of art and they're just beaming. And they're the same with everywhere and stuff like that. My kids were here and you probably heard them on earlier recordings screaming like in the background. Like, so it's on the Miracle Man one for sure. But it's their first time being old enough to kind of like dig it, and they're just digging it.
That's great.
So no, we're being so well looked after, and everyone seems to be doing well. So,
No, I have to say, and I'm not saying this as well because with the show, but it's like it puts the comic and Comic Con like as I was happy. There's portfolio reviews. There's actual comic talks going on. So I have to say fair play to the organisers.
We were here sitting last night setting up. And I got to sort of like, but I was one of the last people to set up, so I got to have like a look around at the Artist Alley myself, whatever. Just the level of talent. Yeah. It's just oh my God, there's just like all the indie kind of artists, I guess the kind of the people who aren't working on the licensed stuff in the guest section, all that Artist Alley is just blow you away, just like world standard stuff. Yeah. And just really inspiring. Like, and I know it sounds like the sort of stuff you would say when you're being recorded, but it's also true. I said it to my kids last night and I said it to my wife when I got back to the room, and I was just like, I'm dwarfed by the skill, by the imagination and the output, so, and like I've talked about this to a few people here and stuff. I just, I never thought I'd be that guy and stuff, but I just love that it's Irish as well.
As a homegrown show, it's so proud because it was just fans like us, coming together.
But it also feels this show has given a place for those people to grow. I'm not sure, without Dublin Comic Con to have like twice a year for people to go, oh, that's my deadline. Yeah. To sort of finish the prints that I always wanted to print, to make, or the craft, exactly. They wouldn't be as good as they are because they've got an outlet, where else are you kind of going to go? And these, I know from talking to them, from my friends out there, that like these two shows are a big chunk of like their annual kind of like revenue, so it's an important weekend for those artists. So absolutely, it's good, isn't it?
Well, listen, thanks so much, Nick, for coming along for this, and I'll catch up with you again over the weekend, I'm sure. I hope you enjoy. Anything else to say? Anything last minute plug?
No, last minute plug. No, there's nothing new comic-y coming down the line, unfortunately. Not in print anyway. No, nothing. It's just watch Transformers Earthspark. It's very good. It's got Alan Tudyk as Optimus Prime. It's got the Hound from Game of Thrones is Megatron. Keith David is Grimlock. Danny Pudi, Abed from Community is Bumblebee. I'm the robot character designer. So all of these famous people have their voices coming out of like faces that I've designed. So it's very, very strange. But it's very family oriented. It's for the people who kind of grew up with Transformers. And it's about young Transformers kind of like learning their way and having to pick a side in the kind of the conflict and stuff, and kind of about old loyalties kind of resurfacing, and it's just really watchable. It's got like a kind of a touch of sort of Spider-Verse, but a little bit of Amblin to it as well. It has that kind of like mid-80s Spielberg sort of feel to it, and I would genuinely be watching it if I wasn't working on it. So, and I don't say that about all the Transformers shows. So I think it's something for everyone. So that's on Nickelodeon or Paramount Plus.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks again, Nick. That's great. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks again to Nick, and as I was saying, hopefully we'll hear from Nick again in the very near future. I hope you've all enjoyed the episode so far. We're about to close out 2025 next week, but don't worry, we'll still have episodes taking us all the way through into about mid to the end of January, and we'll close out season 1 with episode 52. If this is your first time listening to Creator and Conversation, please consider liking and or subscribing. Leave a comment or review, good or bad. It does help to move the needle, so I'll take your hatred, I'll take your comments. But it's been a good experience so far. Really enjoying doing the podcast and having this opportunity to speak with everyone. And check us out online and at our website. It's all under the same handle at TASQart. That's TASQART.com. Until next time, this has been a copyright production, Macaulay Consultancy 2025.